Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. So today we're going to study about plot, and along with that we're going to study about the parts of plot or the elements of plot. So let's get started. So I have divided this video in two parts. First we're going to just have an overview about plot and its element, and then I have written this detailed description about all the elements. So let's discuss what is a plot. You can't have a story without a plot. The plot is a series of events that occur in a story. It's the beginning, middle, end in and it's easy to confuse conflict and plot. All right. So just keep this in your mind that the plot is a series of events. It is the list and sequence of events in the story. Whatever the event is going to happen in the starting or in the beginning of the story, whatever is going to happen in the middle or in the end of the story, that would all count as a plot, because plot is the sequence. This event will come one after another. Okay, it is a sequence or the list of events. So, plot is one of the seven elements of a story, but there are also different elements of plot. We'll cover this in greater detail in the next section. So, what you need to keep in your mind that the plot is a list or the sequence of event in the story, and plot is one of the seven elements of a story. All right, we have different elements, all right, and it is one of that. And plot itself has different parts. It has five parts, all right, parts of plot. So we are not going to study seven elements of a story, but we're only going to focus on the elements of a plot. We have introduction, we have rising action, climax, falling, and resolution. All right, or you can say the ending of a story. Climax, where the tension occurs. So we're going to just gain overview about what all of these are. So introduction is also known as exposition. All right, exposition or introduction both are same thing. So exposition is the beginning part of the story. It is a very initiation or just the starting of the story, and introduces the characters, the setting, and the conflict. So what introduction is supposed to do? Introduction is supposed to introduce you. All right, so it introduces your conflict or the characters, protagonist, antagonist. All right, what sort of characters are going to be in the story? They're going Exposition is going to introduce that. Let's read aloud what's written over here. This usually occurs at the beginning or the initiation of a short story. Here the characters are introduced. We also learn about the setting of the story. So setting is another element or the feature of the story. Setting is the location. All right, is the location that where and when the story is going on. For example, in the birthday party. All right, for example, last January. So setting is when and where the story happens, helps in creating the atmosphere of the story. All right, so most importantly, we are introduced to the main conflict, main problem, whatever the tension is in the story, we are going to get introduced with that in the introductory part. So far, so clear? So let's see with the plot diagram. See, this is the plot diagram. See, this is the introduction. All right, this line you are seeing, this is the introductory part where the characters or the conflict introduce. All right, now after that we have rising action. See, इंट्रोडक्शन है, अब राइज हो रहा है, राइजिंग एक्शन. ठीक है, राइजिंग एक्शन स्टार्ट हो रहा है. इट इज जस्ट द स्टार्टिंग ऑफ द राइजिंग एक्शन. So what happens in the rising action happens when the conflict is addressed by the main characters in the story. All right, इसमें क्या होता है कि जो conflict है और जो characters in the story they meet. All right, they meet. So the conflict is addressed by the main characters in the story. The plot series of events thickens. Series of events thickens the plot. जिसको क्या बोल रहे हैं हम, series of events कहते हैं thickens. events unfold that they may make it seem like the main problem will never be solved. Most of the novel is rising action. This can be many chapters long. So rising action, when it is going to it's just, you need to keep in mind that the rising action starts just after the introduction, and it can take plenty of the pages of the book, plenty of the chapters as well, because the rising action will take characters to the climax or the tension of the story. All right. So most of the novel is rising action, where your interest starts to develop. Now after that, after the rising action, we have climax. Climax, we can also call it a tension, or the point where the rising action ends and climax starts. So it is the most interesting and breathtaking part of the story, presents the protagonist's most challenging moment. All right, so let's see what's written over here. This is the turning point of the story. You need to keep this mind. The turning point of the story is known as the climax. All right, so on majority of the times what happens is the story, for example, the protagonist in the entire novel suddenly becomes the antagonist. All right, so climax, which keeps you hooked, all right, which brings loads of your attention, and usually the main character comes face to face with the main problem or the conflict. All right, so there's already conflict or the tension in the story. So what happens in the climax, that they all meet with the climax. The characters meet with the climax. Often, climax means the problem. Often, the main character will become changed in some way because of the climax. It is often, but not always, a very exciting point in the story. So there, that is sometimes a very exciting, very जितनी भी tension falling rising action में हो रही हो, but the climax just turns it according to the way you wanted. So it is can be a very breathtaking, very interesting part, but sometimes it is not that thing that you want to happen. Alright, it can sometimes, you know you won't feel happy about the climax. Now see climax again. Climax देखा आपने. After rising action we have climax, ऊपर जो आ रहा है climax, and then we have falling action. So falling action happens instantly after the climax. That you need to keep in mind, that after just the ending, or the ending of the climax, we're going to have a falling action. So falling action happens instantly after the climax, reveals the consequences, either good or bad. The characters need to deal with after the turning point of the events. All right, so what happens in the following action? The story settles down. Whatever happened in the story, it is now coming to an end. All right, the ending of the story, falling action, all loose ends of the plot are tied up. For example, there are two to three stories of the families that are going on in the novel, and you feel like that these stories are loose. All right, they are not interconnected with each other, but at the very end you get to know that these stories, these different stories of different families are connected. So following action, what it do, it just tie up all the parts of the story. The conflict and climax are resolved. Whatever happened, whatever the problem or the tension was going on in the story, वो resolve हो जाता है in the end. This is usually quite short, a chapter or two of the entire novel. All right, so it is usually quite short. Now we have resolution. What happens in the resolution? The story comes to a reasonable ending. It is hard to tell where the falling action ends and the resolution begins. So what happens? Some people might get confused between the falling action. Falling action is just coming towards the resolution. All right, it's not the end. It is taking you towards the end of the story. But resolution is the very end. All right, it's a very end. The ending of the story comes to a reasonable ending. It is hard to tell where the following action ends and the resolution begins. This is usually quite short, often a chapter or less of an entire novel. So ending is going to be very short, a resolution is going to be very short. So resolution tells what happens to the characters after the problem or conflict is being resolved, and it leaves the readers a certain emotion. For example, if you're reading a silent patient novel, so it is the name of the novel. You'll be shocked in the end, or you'll be shocked in the end. Happiness, disappointment, pity, or even heartbreak. For example, I read the novel Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. So it just, made me feel close to the heart break, because the ending was unbearable to me. So that's it for today. I hope everything is clear to you. In the coming video, I'm just going to explain this detailed version so that you can know, have a better understanding about a plot. Thank you so much for watching. अपना ख्याल रखिएगा. Allah Hafiz.